me, so I'll just jump right in on what TAFY was all about. I think one of the things I wanted to mention was a group of individuals who gathered together to start this whole initiative back in 2006. As representative Lynx, Kate Mahoney from Pure Services, at that time Al Ross from Haven, and a number of other individuals, Joe Feldman and Stephanie Becker from the Wilmette Youth Commission, teachers from New Churtown, Gobieski and Tim Dorr in particular, and with great support from the township, from New Trier Township, to help us initially with funding and to help us as we went along with matching funds, was really the reason why this whole thing was able to be completed. And we sincerely, appreciate everybody's efforts on this part. The primary goal of TAFY was to provide schools, parents, faith-based organizations, social service organizations, local governments, and funders in New Trier Township communities with a common data set on preteens and youth. It had been a very, very long time since any group had actually gotten together. In fact, it was either 20 to 30 years as we sort of tried to look back, since someone had actually done a community needs assessment. And at that time, and this is interesting to note, the time that that assessment was completed in the early 70s, it was the time that the laws in the federal government and money was given to start up agencies. Lynx is an agency that came about as the result of that assessment. I believe Haven and other social service agencies. So that was a very, very important first step. This is our second step. We're hoping to see some follow-up at a later date. And if the thing that is most critical is that there's been a level of awareness that's been raised in the community about the needs of young people, the successes and some of the challenges that we all face as the young people do, and as parents and as adults in the community. We looked at a whole number of different issues, and as the whole process started out, the first step was to engage about 153 individuals on either one-to-one interviews or in focus groups. From the results of those focus groups and the identification of issues that were given by parents, by village and government agencies and individuals, and by the youth themselves, a assessment was devised. And that assessment was ready in June of 2008. Letters were sent to members of the community, not only to youth themselves through their schools, but also to parents and other adults in the community on a random basis, asking them to go online and to complete the survey. 528 people responded. We had 10 different main areas that were addressed: family relations, schools, activities, friends, relationships with others, bullying, emotional well-being, alcohol and drugs, sex, and community engagement. I'd like to say that I have a breakdown in terms of numbers. I'm not going to go through numbers right now. I think your eyes would glaze over. It would be like, who wants to hear all this? I'm just going to give you a few insights right now, but back at the table that I share with Lynx, where there's information about Lynx, I have a brief rundown, and I'd really welcome you to stop by and ask me any other questions you have, but also to pick up the data. We have more thorough data that you certainly can contact me about. And if anybody wants to do a research project, we're looking for somebody to really dig deep into the data and come up with a report. Maybe there's a graduate student you know about who's looking for a good project. When asked what were the 3 hardest things for youth to deal with in this community, 6th graders reported peer pressure, getting along with students and making friends and other establishing relationships, and the school's expectation of academic success. That's 6th graders. 7th and 8th graders also reported peer pressure, but added stress and depression is the second hardest thing to deal with. High school students reported that stress and depression was the hardest, closely followed by competition. By that, that's competition in academics, sports, and other activities, and peer pressure. Some of the insights that we reported as a result of this survey that I thought you might be interested in. It is age appropriate for youth to shift away from complete reliance on family as they mature. But we discovered that beginning in the 7th and 8th grade, increasing proportion of young people reported not feeling listened to by adults in their family. Parents, on the other hand, think that they talk about the problems as well as they listen to their children all the time. This is one of the things that came through this disparity. A lot of reports on the part of youth that were really very, very, very different from what parents reported. And it's not only in this business about listening, but as you'll see later, it's some other stuff that came up. High schoolers feel the lack of family time. Parents feel it even more strongly. Almost half of all kids feel that they have been bullied. For 20 to 25% of 6th to 8th graders, it is more than a couple of times. Parents seem aware of this. At least 1 in 4 youth report that no one stood up for them during a bullying incident, though most believe from a previous question we asked that they have a friend who would stand up for them. So there's a little bit of a what's happening. You think you have a friend and then the friend's not there when you need them. By high school, 2/3 of kids have witnessed someone being bullied. As youth get older, they turn more and more to friends for help with personal problems. That's no big surprise, is it? During middle school, SIBs run a close second as someone to reach out to. Not until high school do youth see the school as a source of help with personal problems. We found that interesting. And it's one of the things that we may want to direct some focus in terms of the schools have heard this and are aware of it, and I think that there are some changes going on as a result of perhaps trying to be a little more accessible in the junior highs. Parents see their kids as stressed and they worry about it. Teens feel the pressure of time, although adults see them as having enough or more than enough free time. There's a big, huge discrepancy there. Kids' answers about where they get useful information about sex illustrates the importance of a solid 7th and 8th grade sexuality curriculum. Because friends are used as sources of information on sex, it is important that they be educated as well. That's, of course, it really resonated with us at Links because we go into schools and do a lot of programs, more and more and more as the years go by in the 7th, 8th, 5th, and 6th grade. In talking about alcohol and drugs, 25% report never having a drink. This doesn't mean that there isn't a problem with alcohol and drugs, just that it is a problem among fewer kids than many would believe. Past experiences showed us that just having and sharing data is not enough. It should be viewed as a jumping off point for all of us to begin solving problems and enhancing the assets which have highlighted in this report. The work continues. We have reports recently about a lot of things that have transpired just because of the information that's been circulated as a result of the assessment. A lot of social service programs have really looked at the material and recreational programs as well. I've talked with a library that's interested in both enhancing their programs for 7th and 8th graders. Haven, for instance, a while back started a movie night from parents and children with a discussion following. I thought that was just a great, direct response to the results. I think community awareness has been heightened. There's more emphasis on parent-child communication. And aside from what I was saying about Haven, I'd like to say very proudly that Links, as a result of our strategic plan and as a result of some really good planning by our community education staff, have developed programs for parents of 5th and 6th graders, separate group for parents of 7th and 8th graders, and a group for high school parents that could meet in small groups. It could be scheduled through schools or it could be scheduled through community organizations. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for